Hello. This is Suah Deddeh. I want to welcome you to the Gracious Hope Live podcast. We come to you every Saturday at this time. We are grateful that we are still counted amongst the living. If you've been following the events in Liberia, you've heard about the Press Union of Liberia. Recently, an elections were held for the new leadership, and following that elections, there was some misunderstanding following the elections. There were two teams in that competition. But before we go further, let's just give you a little background about the Press Union of Liberia. Um, in the 60s, like-minded colleagues founded the Press Union of Liberia. After one of them, Senator P. Bali, was jailed. He was working with the government. He had published a story that concerned the legislatures, and they were unhappy. So Stanton was arrested and jailed. After that time, Stanton, G. Henry Andrews, and other journalists decided to form a union to protect themselves from those kind of arbitrary arrest and detention. And the press union came into being. Initially, it was called JARL. They wanted the acronym JARL, Journalists Association in Liberia. But they felt that that acronym was not a clear representation of journalists. So the name PUL was decided upon. So now we have the Press Union of Liberia. The Press Union of Liberia has survived a lot of draconian governments in Liberia. The Press Union stands for human rights, free speech, the ability for journalists to operate freely in the country. And since that time, the union has lived a legacy of strength and ingenuity for its member and the democratic process in Liberia. Fast forward to today, the president recently held some elections in Bangabong County. And from that elections, things did not go well. So the case is now in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court decided to ask both parties to have a week of brainstorming to see how they can resolve the issues amongst themselves. And this is where we are today. Today we have representations from the two camps. We hope we can have a clear and open discussion today. But before I move ahead, I'd like to bring in my brother and friend Alexander Raymond, my co-host, who is on the other end. Alex, are you there? Yeah.
I'm here. I'm here. I'm
Wonderful.
here.
Alice is at the other end.
Yes.
So Alice and I will try to dissect or discuss what has happened in the present year of Liberia. Conflict is good sometimes to see the strength and weaknesses of ourselves and our friends. But out of conflict should come something good. And that's why we pray that out of this conflict in the present year, we will have some good results to move the president forward, because the president cannot afford to be not active in the democratic life of our country. And that's why my friend and brother and I will be discussing today with our guests today. So Alex, you can take it from there. You're going to introduce the guests from your end.
Yes, we have Mr. Julius Kanubah, who is a presidential candidate. He's, I believe, part of the aggrieved party that filed the writ of prohibition to the Supreme Court of Liberia. And he will be here to give us a clear understanding of what is going on here. We also have as our guest Daniel Yakua, who is the vice president of the Press Union of Liberia, as well as the president of the Press Union of Liberia, Mr. Charles Coffey. Coffey and I were texting each other for technical difficulties. He couldn't get on the air. He couldn't come on. He's out of area based on his cell phone location. And so for technical difficulties, he could not come in to be live on the air today. Daniel Yakwa, I didn't hear back from him. Hopefully he's okay with his family. But we have in our studios, we have Julius Kanubah, which of course he's one of the presidential candidates, and his campaign manager, Mr. Raymond Zarbay, a journalist, and we'll be talking with them to get a clear understanding of what's going on here. This is nothing about expulsion or denigrating anybody. It's about understanding the nitty gritty of what's going on. for we all know that the case is before the Liberian Supreme Court. So there may be areas or other waters that the guests may not want to, step in there because of some legal reasons, and we understand that. But we found it very interesting to know what's going on here as journalists. And so, if you're just joining us, we'd like to say welcome. This is the Gracious Hope podcast, and Reverend Suah and I will be talking to our guests here. And without much ado, I will now bring on the presidential candidate, Julius Kanubah. Let me bring him to the screen here. There you go. And his campaign manager, Mr. Raymond Zarbay. Welcome to the Gracious Hope Live podcast this Saturday. Hopefully, Monrovia is treating all of you well. I know you got a lot going on right now mentally, based on what is going on in the Supreme Court and your own personal obligations as well. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. So, on behalf of the Julius Kanubah for the PUL presidency, we want to extend our heartfelt thanks and appreciation for this opportunity to give you a better perspective of what has been happening. We want to say thanks to Suah for that historical analysis of the PUL. Little did I know that the first name of the PUL was jail, a journalist association in Liberia, jail. At least I've learned something from this ministry that the two of you are running very ably. So we are very thankful for this opportunity. I just want to officially introduce our candidate. Suah said he doesn't know him yet, but he's an enterprising young man, a young man that has been tested and proven very trusted, a young man who has enjoyed our tutelage, a young man who has taken great interest in his self-education and self-development, a young man who served once as Assistant Secretary General at the Press Union of Liberia during the regime of Mr. Peter Coffey. And this is a young man who has relinquished his job. He had a well-paid job, but he was petitioned and he said, I will resign and I will come and resurrect the lost image of the PUL. So I'm pleased to first give the floor to Mr. Julius Kanubah. He is our presidential candidate in this PUL. By the way, let me just correct that. The elections that took place in Banga were bogus. Sorry for my expression, were bogus. And that is why we're trying to right the wrong. So I'll give the floor to our very illustrious presidential candidate, Julius Kanubah. Julius.
Thank you very much, Mr. Raymond Zarbay. Also, thanks to Alex, and also thanks to the former president of the Press Union, Mr. Suah Deddeh. It's a pleasure being on your platform at this particular stage. I'm excited to be with you all, especially Mr. Deddeh. When I was studying in South Africa for a master's program in journalism and media studies at Wits University, I think I did draw upon you, especially there was an article you published in the Journal of Democracy, pushing for press freedom in Liberia.
Yeah.
And it helped me a lot to understand some of the struggles that the press union has encountered. And it has helped me a lot to understand the media landscape historically in Liberia. So in as much we might not have interacted, but
Internet is static.
Yeah.
Hopefully he's going to come back.
That's the usual internet.
Okay. Until he gets back, I know he's frozen a little bit. Let me get him off the screen right now. Bring him back. Okay, so Mr. Zarbay, this whole crisis that is going on, we understand it all stems from the elections that occur in Banga, right? Banga, Bon County.
No, that's just the outcome of the fraudulent process. Yeah, that's just an outcome. That the whole thing started from Monrovia with the settlement of this. The PUL goes to Congress now every 3 years. To hear from the leadership on the operations of the PUL. Then subsequently, the ushering of a new corps of officers through an election process. So, and the outgoing leadership, usually has the prerogative to set up a Congress committee and an elections. The Congress committee is a body. Then you have the subcommittees like the elections and inauguration committee, and you have the membership committee. So these were all set up, and they started their work. But along the way, there were some faults. And maybe they did not realize that, what was going on was faulty. Because we have been vetted and we were clear. And when I'm talking about we, I'm talking about our team, Julius, Kanubah, and Beatrice. They were cleared after they submitted, they met all of the requirements, after they expressed their interest to vie for the presidency and the vice presidency. After all of that clearing, then the membership committee had the work to, publish a list after, recruitment and what have you, publish a list of those, who were qualified. We have, categories of membership. We have affiliate, we have associate, we have institutional, we have full membership. And when they published the list, the provisional list, we noticed that it was 40. Some of those who were on the list as full members were not qualified. We did our background search and we brought that to their attention. But they felt that we're making too much noise, we didn't have confidence in their ability. We said, no, this borders on the credibility of the Press Union of Liberia. The Press Union of Liberia is very noted for its advocacy. I heard Suah, in his introduction, was talking about how, there were, colleagues of ours in the past who sweat and blood, has us going here where we are now. So it is just incumbent upon every one of us to make sure that we don't allow that legacy to fade away. And that is what Charles Coffey and his team have taken interest into doing. And we have stood the test of time. We have said, no, you cannot go this way. So fast forward, we contested the membership list, all right? The first list they put out, we said no. We went through the list and said, there are people on this list. For example, there was a high school student who just graduated very recently. He has in his possession a full member, Press Union of Liberia identity card. And he, in fact, if the election took place, he would have saved in somebody who had not graduated from school but participating in the election process. Somebody who impersonated as a journalist, impersonated as one Leonard Dudu. Leonard Dudu works for the Front Page Africa. He's the news desk editor or chief at the Front Page Africa newspaper. He impersonated as Leonard Dudu. That name surfaced on the PUL membership rule. So with all of this, we wrote the membership, the election and inauguration committee headed by Attorney Adewale Kepula, bringing to their attention that the membership committee, the list that they produced, the list was fraudulent. And they did not listen to us. They said, okay, now bring your evidence. Since you are making these allegations, bring your evidence. So because we knew there would have been some legal implication into this matter, we had already gathered and compiled our pieces of evidence. We were cited. We went there, we met them, and we expressed to them that indeed we're very strong, we're very determined to make sure that what they published was fraudulent. So they asked us, and they asked us to provide pieces of evidence for them. And we went there and told them because there was some legal implication, we wanted to be represented legally. That would require us, hiring the services of a legal person. So they told us, I mean, and we told them we needed like 3 days, you know, to get ourselves legally prepared. When we told them, brought out this information to them that we needed to be represented legally, they told us to. We have met at the PUA headquarters. They told us to give them time. They wanted to consult among themselves. They called us back, and they said, no, 3 days was too long. We'll reduce it to 2 days. So, but then we're in touch with our legal person. So we told them, okay, give us another 5 minutes to we want to get in touch with the our legal person. So we went out and we came to a common ground 2 days. It's a win-win. It was a win-win situation. So we agreed for the 2 days. The 2 days came. We appeared with our lawyer from the Sopowu and Associates law offices. We appeared with Attorney Alphonsus Wewer. His first career was journalism, but now he found himself in a legal profession. So we hired the services of Attorney Alphonsus Wewer. Alfonso appeared with us. We have pieces of evidence, and they welcomed us and they told us, because I led the team, and I told them that we have come with our lawyer, and because we are grateful that you are giving us this opportunity to come with our lawyer, and because we know that it has some legal implications, so we waive our rights to our lawyer to speak on our behalf. He accepted, and Anthony Wewer stood up to speak, and all they expected was for him to just provide the pieces of evidence. Anthony Adewale Kakula is a lawyer. You had another Bobby Livingston, a lawyer, counselor. Barney Rogers, another lawyer, and attorney at law. They were all there. So when he stood up, our lawyer stood up to speak, he wanted to lay the premise for, giving a basis for our allegations, and we were prepared to substantiate our allegations. I mean, they got so disruptive and felt that, I mean, it was a waste of time. They invited us to come and just provide the pieces of evidence. We said, no, we could not provide the pieces of evidence without giving you the premise, explaining to you how we gather all our pieces of evidence.
So Raymond, who was disruptive? The lawyers or the committee? Who was disruptive?
The committee. The committee. Yeah. In the committee, you have another person of that committee was Melody Mizzy. She was in our room, and they were very disruptive. It was only Carolyn Myers, who was the chair of the Congress committee, who at least tried to, stabilize the situation. So they were kind of disruptive. We said, no, I mean, you can't treat our lawyer this way. He has come to represent us, and he needs the time to explain to you why we are making these allegations. All right. So it went back and forth. That first appearance wasn't successful. All right. They felt that, I mean, if we really had approves of our allegations, we needed to come so that we can, try to iron out things. They invited us. If you think, right after our appearance, they call in a membership committee and they issue a release afterwards and said, indeed, there was something wrong with the membership, with the role, and needed to be clean.
Okay, but so which committee issued that release that there was something wrong with the roster?
The subcommittee on election and inauguration headed by
and what was done about it?
Pardon?
What was done about it?
When they issued that release, then they started making calls to us that we needed to exhaust all of the in-house problems and see if we could not reach a common ground, then we can, try to seek outside assistance. But when they call us, we said we're not appearing. We provided them a roadmap, and that roadmap required going to the Constitution, disaggregating the voter roll. We told them that since we are part of the crisis, all right, and we did not need to be part of those to clean the list, we recommended that we recommend an independent panel consisting of the the Civil Society Council of Liberia, the National Media Council, and the various auxiliary groups. You have the Reporters Association, you have the Female Journalists Association, the Sports Writers Association. These are people who know their friends. All right? These are people who know their friends. And that committee, we recommended that that committee should be headed by the National Civil Society Council of Liberia, co-chaired by the National Media Council. Well, the committee, the inauguration Congress committee felt that would have been a usurpation of their function. So they disagree with us and stay persistently call us to come and clean the list. And we refuse. We refuse that we're not going to clean the list. We felt that because it would have, in fact, it would have been a deadlock. Because if we have gone there and said, okay, we have, these are the names that we've seen on the roll, and they have not met the benchmark to be full member to participate in the election process, the Nyankonah team would have come and said, no, these are people we are very confident should be on the list. It would have resulted to a dialogue. So it was on that basis that we said, look, since the two of us are parties to this conflict, this crisis, let's invite an independent panel that will come and see how they can sort out these things. And they refused to say no. So they went ahead. While we were, we kept, because when they said they were not listening to us, we issued a press release and said that, they were proceeding wrongly, and the list that they published was very fraudulent. And this was not something we were going to participate in. Because they did not listen to us, they said they were pressed for time, they invited us, we did not come, they were proceeding. When they told us to come to clean the list, they didn't want to produce a final list. Because we refused to go, so they said they were proceeding. So
who day? You mean the election committee?
The Congress committee now.
Okay.
The Congress committee said they were proceeding, so they went ahead. So since they did not want to listen to us, they ignored all of our recommendations or what have you, we told our reporters, our supporters rather, stay away from this process. This is a fraudulent process. We have tried to make sure that this process is credible, but the Congress committee is not listening to us, it's ignoring us, so stay away from the process. They went ahead and produced a list. It's so funny. The first list, the final list they produced, instead of cleaning the list from 1,300, they increased the list to 1,426. In our absence, they said they were cleaning the list. Instead of cleaning the list and reduce it to make sure that we have credible people on the list, they want to increase the list, and they went ahead. So because we felt aggrieved, we felt that we're not being listened to. We prayed the circuit court in Bangabong County for a writ of injunction and declaratory judgment. It was issued by our legal team, and was issued on the eve of the election on a Friday. So because the time had elapsed for, time had elapsed for the court opening, court closes at 4:00, so they didn't have the time. They waited the next day to go and vacate our writ of injunction. And they went some kind of way. They say they got a writ of injunction.
Raymond, let me just come a little bit. So that next day was Saturday. The next day was the election day.
Yeah, the next day was the election day.
Okay, but let me just ask a question before we lost sight of that. Now, the first meeting, would it have been okay to just release the names of the fortunate names that were on the roster so that you can make sure you make a point at that time? Wasn't it possible? Because you said your lawyer wanted to lay the groundwork and he was interrupted. At what point was he interrupted? Was it that he was unwilling to present the names of those who were on the list fraudulently, or what?
No,
we just need clarity on that.
Yeah, the members of the Congress committee were very impatient to listen to him, to lay the premise before presenting our pieces of evidence. were very cooperative, but they were not listening to us. They were very impatient.
Okay. So are you saying to us that your lawyer was trying to lay the premise before presenting the evidence, and he was not given the chance to do that? Is that what you're saying?
He was, yes.
He was not given the chance to do that. Okay. But then after that time, did you have the ironclad evidence of those who were listed as fraudulent voters to submit it later on, or to show it to any other committee members? Or did you write and attach that?
We have gone. We wrote them when we noticed that the role was fraudulent. We wrote the subcommittee headed by Attorney Adewale Kakula, stating to her that we have seen the list and we're not satisfied with the list. There was some fraudulence that took place, and we're prepared to provide pieces of evidence to substantiate our claims and allegations. But we are very impatient when one of our lawyers.
But remember, I'm thinking if you have because elections, the president elections, we don't have one set elections or guidelines. Sometimes the committee sets guidelines for the elections, but the constitution of the president is clear on how the electoral process should be. So would it have been possible, because I'm thinking with the evidence you have, would it have been possible to submit those names to the committee quickly so that you can just nip the issue in the bud and clear everything and prove your case or hands down without any delay? Don't you think it would have been okay?
I mean, if they had just, because they had a mindset already. The fact that they were disruptive when we went to provide pieces of evidence, they had a mindset already. They delayed the process.
Yes, no, what I mean, Raymond, Ellis, before you come in, please, I just want to be clear on this. What I mean, you already had the evidence, because for us journalists, once you have the evidence and you have the chance to present our evidence, we don't hesitate, especially if we can verify, we can prove beyond all reasonable doubt. So I'm thinking, wouldn't it have been okay to maybe it would have stopped out of where we are today to just look, this is what we see, these are the fraudulent, and happened before the president election. I mean, having names on the list, sometimes we've dealt with that in the past. So what we did was, if anybody sees any name, quickly let the election commission knows, release that name, and then they push the list of that name. So this won't be the first time it happening, but you gotta be quick on that. So my question is, to rephrase it, would it have been okay to just release those fraudulent names to the commission so that you just prove to them that you have reasons to be skeptical of the process?
We were prepared to give them our pieces of evidence. But like I said to you, because they were disruptive, because they had a mindset already, so they were very unwelcoming. They were very unwelcoming. We have gone there to provide pieces of evidence. Okay. They were very unwelcoming. Yeah, I mean, Julius will come here and explain. They were very unwelcoming.
Yeah, regarding to the point as to whether we presented the pieces of evidence, yes, we did. What we did was to do first an analysis of the list to see the variations between 2019, when the Press Union of Liberia last held its elections, and 2022. So we look at the number of persons who were registered in 2019, and then go to 2022, how many persons have registered. And then on the lists, we try to look for new entries. For instance, those who acquired or obtained membership in 2022, but also people who have membership before 2019 or 2016, but they now registered in 2019 to participate. So we did the analysis, we saw in the variances. For instance, we had 800 new persons who registered for the elections in 2022. Because in 2019, we have 1,166 persons who got the full membership of the Press Union of Liberia. And once you have the full membership, you are qualified to vote, right? Compared to the other membership categories like associate, affiliate. And in 2022, there were different sort of figures that were published by one, the membership committee, two, the Congress committee, and then the elections and inauguration committee. So we had a conflicting figure. So what we did, we submitted, for instance, one of the radio stations in one of the counties to test the sincerity and honesty of the committee as to whether they have the capability or competencies to somehow vet the list. We submitted a radio station that has 15 staff. Out of the 15 staff, about 7 are associated with the work of journalism, media, and communication in the context of being a journalist. And then the 8 other persons, they are like finance officer. You have interns, and then you have community volunteers, right? So we said, but these people, they have not even met the eligibility criteria of the Press Union of Liberia, and also they don't practice journalism. Because to be a full member of the PUL, you should first be a Liberian journalist, and you must have practiced for 5 years. That's one of the criteria. And then if you have not practiced for 5 years and you have a degree in journalism, media, or communication, that is a bachelor degree, you shall have practiced for 2 years. If you have a degree, bachelor's degree in any other field, you should practice for 3 years. So we did the analysis. We saw a lot of names. So we submitted just one set to the committee. And you know what it did? Instead of calling each of the person, they call instead the station manager of the radio station or the CEO to come and justify why his or her staff is a member of the PUL and whether the person reached the eligibility criteria. And if you call the station manager who did or did not register, their staff, it means there's a problem. So it smelled fishy to us because the station manager that you call was supporting the other side. So that person could say, yes, Mr. Suah Deddeh has been working my radio station for 10 years. Instead of calling Mr. Suah Deddeh, because per the constitution, individual member would have to go and register instead of registering through the radio station, right? And also what is crucial in our case is that the constitution of the Press Union of Liberia, especially Article 10, Section 7, it says that the membership committee, with the approval of the PUL leadership, shall publish in not less than 2 local dailies registered members of the union, not later than 30 days before Congress. Lists of all registered members of the union shall be disaggregated into categories of membership, males and females, due paying and non-due paying or delinquent members, editors, reporters, etc. So in order to ensure a credible voter roll or membership register, you first need to disaggregate the data or the names. So what was done by the membership committee in consultation with the leadership and the Congress committee, as well as the subcommittee on elections and inauguration, they just published names and they put the gender types, male or female. So we don't know where Mr. Suah Deddeh works. We don't know what sort of a title he holds at a specific media entity. And we don't know how many years he has practiced for. So per the constitution, we needed to know. So we submitted a feedback to the committee. We said, first, you have to disaggregate the categories of membership: full membership, associate membership, affiliate membership. And then you state the title the person has in a specific institution, because that's the constitution. The committee said no. The Congress committee said no, we can't do it. We'll just put Mr. Suah Deddeh, male or female. And then if you check down, you'll see a Suah Deddeh. So you have one Suah Deddeh. Then if you go down the list, you'll see a Suah Deddeh. So how do we know it is not a duplication of names? And how do we know there is a motive, right? And we had a case where, for instance, one journalist, he was working at Radio Veritas before, and later he joined the public affairs section of the Defense Ministry. He was arrested about 2 years ago by the government of allegedly committing rape against his own daughter. He has been in jail for nearly 2 years. His name surfaced on the list. We had instances where their bodies, right? People who died as journalists, their names surfaced on the list. So what, was the intention? So we did all of the analysis and said, please, let's clean the voter roll. But to do it, you will have to go and disaggregate the data. They're saying they cannot do it. We want to delay them. And this is a constitutional requirement. Mr. Suah Deddeh, if you check in the Constitution, Article 10, Section 7, it spells out how the membership register should be structured. right? So we had a problem. And we said, if he cannot do it, then it means that you are undermining the very constitution. So the evidence that we submitted was a tip of the iceberg, right? Because we did not have faith in the committee in all instances that Mr. Zarbay was saying the way how they were proceeding. Because we know that members of the committee, most members of the committees, they have been on the strategic team of the other side. And they said they were going to do independent work. We said we'll not question your credibility.
And you can prove, you can verify that
Yeah.
most members on the committee were on the other side.
Yeah, they were. But they said when they took over or when they got appointed, they said they were going to do independent work, no matter their position previously. So we said we don't have problem with any individual because all of us, we are journalists and we are most likely to be on one side or the other, right? So we said we'll not question your credibility. We'll question the processes that you are involved with. And that was critical for us, right? So we saw partiality in their work. For instance, there was a time we submitted a letter, and then the chairperson on the elections and inauguration described our letter as a crap. Yeah, I mean, you submit a letter even without reading it. She said she just read the cover, and she said on ERBC, she confirmed it. She said, I saw the letter, I said it's a crap. Because we're telling them you have to follow the Constitution. And for us, we wanted an independent panel, right? An independent panel to come in. And we said the committee did not have the capability of addressing our concerns. So we wrote the president of the PUL, Mr. Charles Coffey, the former president, right? We wrote him and said, Mr. Coffey, we've gone to the committee, set up an independent panel. And he did well. He invited our team. Our team met him, and in principle, he committed to setting up a panel. He said the word independent, is too strong, right? He said the word independent is too strong. It's like they want to come take over the functions of the leadership or the different committees of the PUL. He said he'll bring, and the independent panel we're talking about, it is a panel composing of members of the Press Union of Liberia, especially the auxiliary or the constituent members of the PUL, the Reporters Association, the Female Journalists Association, you have the Publishers Association, the Association of Liberian Community Radio Stations. So you bring this sort of a panel because the reporters, they know their members. FIJA, the female journalists, they know their members. Aliko knows their members. The publishers, they know themselves, and they also know who work within the media sector of the different newspapers that they have. So we said, bring this panel.
Which group is Aliko?
The Association of Liberian Community Radios.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so we have the media landscape has expanded. We did an analysis when I was working with Internews. We have like 163 radio stations in the country. So most of them are community radio stations or radio stations that are based in the counties, also of Montserrat, but also in Montserrat County. So we did all of these things, and we told President Coffey set up the committee. He refused. He refused to set up the committee. And then when the crisis ensued in the union, and we went to the associate justice who is presiding in chambers, and then Charles Coffey set up a committee to investigate the electoral disagreement. So if you did not set a committee up to investigate the processes leading to the elections, right? And then when the crisis ensued, and then you set up a committee. So there was a motive to produce a fraudulent leadership first, and then you set up a committee to help to mediate.
So talking about that committee, I'm glad you went to the committee. We can continue, but I just want to make sure. So that committee has been set up. Is your team, and the question also goes to Zarbay, Brother Zarbay. Is your team willing to work with this committee that has just been set up by the president?
To the answer to that question, we'll be right back. Let's take a little break here. We'll be right back. If you're just joining us, this is the Gracious Hope Live podcast. My name is Alexander Ray, the host, and of course, the co-host, Reverend Suah Deddeh, is also here. And we have the presidential candidate of the Press Union of Liberia, and his name is Julius Kanubah. He's explaining here his grievances regarding the the recent election that took place in the Press Union. And right now, the case is before the Supreme Court for adjudication. And so if you're just joining us, would like to welcome you. And as we continue the discussion, please share our link with your friends, your family, your relatives, and all those that you love, so they can be a part of this program. We invited the president of the Press Union of Liberia, Mr. Charles Coffey, but his desktop or laptop did not make it through because it had some technical difficulties. And also, we didn't hear from Mr. Daniel Nyankonah, who is the vice president of the PUL. And so we are left with the two guests here. That is the president, the candidate, the presidential candidate of the PUL, Julius Kanubah, and his campaign manager, Raymond Zarbay. And they are explaining what they experience as we look forward to get a clear-cut verdict from the Supreme Court. Hopefully, this will be resolved amicably, and that's all we look forward to. And so that was just a break there I wanted to give you. So now you can go ahead with your answer. Where is Mr. Zarbay? I think he left. Go ahead, Mr.
Regarding whether we are willing to work with the committee, yes. The only problem we had initially was that when we met the justice in chambers last Wednesday, he said the parties to the controversy in the PUL should return home, relook at the processes, and then come up with a common understanding, a common ground, and then report to me within 1 week, right? So President Coffey appointed the committee shortly after the meeting on the late evening of Wednesday, without consulting us who took the matter to the Supreme Court through the presiding and the justice in chambers. So for us as a party to the case, the Young President constituted a committee without consulting us. So we had a problem with the setup, the processes leading to the appointment of the committee members. We did not question the credibility, integrity, or competencies of the members of the committee. They are all credible people. But we questioned the decision of the president, of the former president, to appoint a committee without consulting us as the major party to the case, because we took the Press Union of Liberia to court, to two different courts, right? One in Banga and the other one at the Supreme Court. So how can the Press Union be appointing a committee without consulting us when the justice in chambers?
Okay, pick up, Mr. Zarbay. You can pick up from there. His string got frozen.
Yeah, okay. Attempt to resolve the differences, right? So we welcome the committee.
Okay, you getting me right?
And members of the committee, and members of the committee called us. For instance, the Association of Liberian Journalists has got a representative on the committee, Melissa Anna, a brilliant female journalist who also served in different leadership roles at the PUL. So they called us to say whether we have problem with the committee. We said no, we don't have problem with the committee. We have problem with the processes leading to the setting of the committee, right? So the work. I mean, they convinced us that, yes, they can be able to do the work. We said, we don't have problem with you. And then Urias Toga, who is the department chair of the Communication and Media Studies Department at the University of Liberia, he also called us to say whether we have problem with the committee. We said no. So
okay, his screen is frozen. Go ahead, Zarbay. He said,
so
go ahead, continue from there.
So like Julius is saying, we criticize the process, but we're not critical of those named to the committee. We had conversation with the chair of the committee, Professor Wade Bole, and like Julius said, we spoke to the chair of the mass comm department at the University of Liberia, Urias Toga, and Pierre Doma also called to ask whether we have problem with them. We said no, we didn't have any problem with them. They asked us, in fact, to express our concerns. We told them that Charles Coffey was proceeding wrongly because when we met the Justice in Chamber, Associate Justice Yusuf Kaba, he told us, you guys go and see how you can harmonize this. I'll give you 1 week, So he went and set up the committee. When we called the committee member, we said, we have no problem with you people. We have explicit confidence in you, but we think we need to have the committee expanded. And they had no problem, no objection at all. The chair said, "Yeah, you guys are." We asked them whether their constitution, was concomitant with their terms of reference. They said no. Charles Coffey, set up the committee with no terms of reference. What period are you working in? Because the justice in chamber said 1 week. All right. So they said they didn't have any problem. So we nominated the likes of Aaron Colley, Elizabeth Hope, and Lana Pony. We took some time because we didn't want to recommend people without their consent.
Yeah.
All right. We had intentionally wanted to recommend Jonathan Peleda, but he said, he expressed, interest, but for now, he's trying to run as some representative in his county. So he said, he didn't want to be a member of a committee where he'll be either be working online. He want to be physical, especially given the gravity of
Yeah.
the situation. So they said they didn't have a problem. So we sent in our. Oh my God, you getting me right?
Yeah, we're
Yes,
hearing
we
you.
are hearing you.
We're
Go
hearing you.
My
ahead.
phone is giving some problems. So we submitted the names to them through the chair, and they felt that in fact she was interviewing EFBC saying that 1 week wasn't enough. They would have written the justice in chamber to ask for 2 weeks in order to meet with us. They were planning to meet with us to hear exactly what was happening, to have a better perspective of what they heard in the media and what they were told at the same time. So that was where we are.
That's great. So in other words, you submitted three names to the committee to be a part of the committee. Is that correct? Can you hear me,
Yes,
Zarbay?
I'm hearing. I said that's correct. We did.
Okay, all right.
Oh,
Kanubah, I hope
you
I'm
hear
getting.
me?
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you. We can hear, and we can see you too. Yeah, we
Hello.
can hear you and see you. That's good. I listen
I'm hearing you, Suah. I said yes, we did.
Okay, yes, I'm just following up right now, Zarbay. I'm just following up. I need a clarity on something that Kanubah said, and maybe you can speak to that.
Yeah.
Kanubah said from the 1999 to 2022 roster, there was 800 new names added to the list. I mean, registration. And from
Mhm.
that list, your committee or your team noticed some names that were not qualified to be full members. All right.
Sure.
Okay. And then he also mentioned this radio station with an example of names they have problem with. So is he saying the 800 names will include the names from the radio station he mentioned?
Obviously, yeah.
Okay, all right. So you also talk about dead journalists on the list. Would you mind sharing with us who are the dead journalists on that list, if you don't mind?
Talking about?
He said he was asking if you can remember any one of the dead journalists' names that were
On the list
listed.
that you mentioned. Okay, it looks that we have. Okay, we
Yeah, we have
lost
a
both of
technical
them.
difficulty. Yeah,
Yeah,
so both of them out right now, but
yeah,
we'll
we know
be
the
right
internet thing.
back.
Yes, yeah. So
All right, so we are back. The lines, the two lines for both Columba and the Zarbay is the two lines are having some sort of a problem. It seems to be very static, and they are in and out. But so far, what we are gathering here is just to understand the current crisis that is going on in the Press Union of Liberia. We know that the Press Union of Liberia is the bastion of truth and press freedom, and it has existed for a very long time, established in our society as the fourth estate. Members of the press, we have a relevant role in society, in all the democratic processes. And so the press union is necessary, or its necessity is only defined by the basis of its own in-house inner workings. And so when there's a crisis going on, it behooves us to understand what is going wrong and how it can be resolved. In this case, the parties involved are not coming to terms where they can resolve it on their own, and the case now ends up in the Supreme Court. Hopefully, there will be some sort of result or an announcement or adjudication or verdict, maybe I say, so that we can see what's going on here. But we heard a lot of allegations about or concerning voter fraud, and that they had some dead people on the list, according to Mr. Zarbay and his presidential candidate, Mr. Kanubah. And we're just looking forward for this to be resolved. We're hoping to hear from the PUL president, Charles Coffey, but he couldn't make it in, as well as his vice president, to at least get some sort of a perspective from their end and how they saw things going and their intervention or actions relating to resolving the issue. Yeah, so that's what we're hearing so far, Reverend Deddeh. What are you making up so far in hearing what Mr. Zarbay and Mr. Kanubah are saying here?
Yes, my frank observation so far is that the issue should not have reached this far if they were paying attention to each other. Contestants in every elections or any elections have the right to protest the names of registrants on any voter list. I mean, the Kanubah team did not do anything wrong by raising issues about the elections, the voter registration list. That was a fair take, and I think the elections committee or commission. Perhaps they were paying attention to that in order to resolve the issue. So we're not clear on what they did. We can't speak for them right now. They are not here. I wish they were here to speak to the issue. That's why we invited them. So we can't speak for them. So I think if all due diligence was applied, the whole ballot would not have reached this place. And more besides the issue of dead journalists on the list, I'm very interested in knowing those dead journalists are on the list of the roster of our elections. If that's the case, we need to know the names and be clear on whether or not this the allegation is true. So we're talking about journalists, Ellis, and these are people who are trained to gather, edit, inform, entertain, so that they know the whole 9 years when it comes to what should suffice as journalists. So I just want to be clear that the Kanubah committee, the team, did what they felt they could do properly to contest what was on the voter registration and the election commission. And I'm on the election commission for Aja. So if anybody writes to me and states that they see names on the list that shouldn't be there, it should draw my attention quickly, and I want to act, because I don't want to create any semblance of not paying attention not paying attention to that inquiry, and then even though you try to be fair in the process, but because you didn't act properly or swiftly enough, the issue of credibility must suffice, and you don't want that. Yeah, you don't want that. So I strongly believe that this issue would have been resolved if both sides really may move swiftly. That's why I was asking Raymond, wouldn't it have been possible to release the names you have, okay, to the committee? I know your lawyers went there, release the names you have, and challenge the election commission or inaugural committee so that they can see the credibility of what you have. But again, he explained that the lawyer was trying to lay the premise, the groundwork, and then there was interruption. So we just hear one side. You are a journalist, trained journalist, so we don't want to just start judging by hearing one side of the story. You always got to have the balanced information in order to be informed or to make an informed decision on what the whole thing survives. So I believe the issue should be resolved, Alex. I have no doubt. These are all colleagues who know each other well. The Supreme Court is playing its part, and I think Kabah, or Justice in Chambers Kabah, for sending them back. You know, it goes back to the scripture. You know, this program is also biblically based. It goes right back to the scripture.
Mm-hmm.
If you have issue against your brother, call him,
Yeah.
talk to him. If he doesn't listen, call one or two other persons. If he or she stays does not listen, then of course the scripture says listen to a reprobate mind. We don't think we're going to come to that stage of the reprobate mind. But I believe these brothers will resolve this issue if they begin to listen to each other and see the need of the Press Union. We've come a long way, at least.
Yes.
We struggle with the Press Union. We I don't want to go back into our own time, but we struggle with the Press Union. We don't want all of the sweat and blood and effort to go in vain because of this. I don't think that will happen. They will find a way out, and we are available. You and I in the committee is available to help them resolve this issue, because I believe at least they can do it if they put their mind to it.
Yeah, if they, but right now I know they are awaiting the verdict from the justice, not justice, but the Supreme Court. So it's a legal matter right now. Whatever ruling that comes up, I believe the parties involved will have to follow. But it's our hope and prayer that everything will be resolved, even though some people might not be satisfied. But if the verdict is interpreted based on the law of the land or the nuances involved, that can be not spicer, but that can be pulled apart and then clearly see who is accountable and what went wrong and what can be done. Then we will, look at the verdict as legit, and whoever wins, whether it is re-election, recall, or whether the judge will accept the current electoral results, we don't know. But which way that will come forward, I believe all of the parties have given that evidence that they have to prove that case. So hopefully that's where we will be turning our focus. Sometimes I don't know when it's going to happen, but I see Kanubah back in there. Mr. Kanubah, welcome back. I know the internet is not that good. Just finally here, because we are out of time now. When is the case? When is the final result? When will the judge give the result? And any final word, because we're about to close.
Well, first, the case that we have at the Chambers Justice is not something that he'll go into the merits and demerits of the case. First, he's looking into our writ of prohibition. That is, we are asking the Chamber Justice to reverse whatsoever actions that were taken during the Congress of the Press Union of Liberia that led to the subsequent elections, because there was an injunction placed on the process, and the injunction was controversially vacated or revoked. So we want the Associate Justice to return all to status quo ante. So he's not looking into the case and whether we are right or wrong, but we want him to restore our rights and to tell the judge that you have to hear the case that we file in Bon County first before you can lift the injunction, because the injunction was lifted without a hearing, and that is a contentious decision. So the justice in Chambers is not going to look at who is wrong, who is right, but he's going to look into the process leading to the lifting of the injunction. And so this is at his discretion. And the laws of Liberia are somehow very interesting, because whatsoever he does, it is at his discretion.
So the court in Banga, what it did, they ruled that the election were okay, the results are okay, or what?
No, the court in Banga, we apply for a writ of injunction and a declaratory judgment. So there was no hearing into the case. So they only issue a writ of injunction to the party. Yes, you have to halt this process for now until you can appear in court. And the other party too, they said they used the law to lift the injunction. So there was no hearing. So we went to the Associate Justice now that, hey, you have to mandate the courts in Banga to hear our case, because there was no due process accorded us, despite our case being before the judge in Banga. So at the Supreme Court also, the justice in Chambers is not going to hear anything about the pieces of evidence that we have, about the magnitude of the case, the defense of the other side. No, He's only going to say whether due process was respected in Banga by the court or not. So he can choose to say it was violated or it was respected. And then each of the party, for instance, if he chooses to sustain or to give us or to grant all that prohibition, the other party too has a right to seek appeal directly to the Supreme Court, the full bench. Also, if he denies or declines to issue the writ of prohibition, we can go to the full bench of the Supreme Court. And the full bench now would now look at the merits and demerits of the case. So what we are doing is just on the surface. And what is crucial, what is crucial also is that President Coffey, or former President Coffey, set up a committee of 8 persons. You have Professor Wede Kopa Bole, Kenneth Wabes, Melissa Anna, representing Aja, and Martin Brown, A. Trikonta, Urias Tuga, Tia Doma, and Maureen C. In the face of the committee, like you were asking whether we are cooperating, yes. In the face of committee working, while the committee is working, President Coffey went to the Associate Justice on Wednesday and said there has been no progress. Right. And that was contradictory because the committee has been working.
Okay, so there's a static again. All right. Okay. Well, this is how we.
I want to follow up on something, but then I mean, we keep having this internet. I mean, just all over the place, so we can't blame him for going off and on.
Yes.
Because if the judge in Banga, he said it was a controversial reification, lifting of what they wanted. Now, there was now a hearing for the judge to do that. So he didn't have a hearing when he lifted it. So I'm thinking, what was the controversial part about the judge lifting what he imposed? But again, the legal system is interesting, and you might not understand all of the nitty-gritties in how the judiciary work for some of us who are not lawyers and who have not practiced law in one day of our lives. So it's a difficult thing to understand some of the intricacies of the law.
Yes.
But if a judge imposed something and lists what he imposed, I'm wondering what is the controversial part of that in our process. But again, he can speak to that when he comes back. But we already don't have time now.
We already done here, and this is how we conclude our broadcast for today, Saturday, December the 3rd, 2022, and we've been talking about the Press Union of Liberia crisis, the elections crisis that is now in the legal system to be adjudicated, and we've been talking with one of the presidential candidates, Julius Kanubah. And hopefully we all learn from his perspective, including his campaign manager, Mr. Zarbay, what has been going on. We just don't understand some of the intricacies from the other side, that is from the president of the Press Union of Liberia, Mr. Charles Coffey, as well as his vice president, Daniel Nyankonah. Hopefully they have, different way or maybe something else to add or to say from their own perspective. But we just hope and pray that a committee that is being set up now of those credible journalists that have been put together as a team to see if they can intervene, because from what we're hearing so far, this is just the surface of it, according to him. So they might go to the full bench later on if they are not satisfied or content with whatever outcome that might come from the Associate Justice. But we all hope the best for the Press Union of Liberia. It's a vibrant organization, and the union hope unity will make it stronger. And so that members and officials can put aside all their petty differences to make a strong union. Raymond, Deddeh, any final word before we leave?
Well, you just summarized it as I think I would have done. We look forward to the resolution of this thing. It's not good for the Press Union, especially when we are approaching the 2023 elections in Liberia. The union should be preparing and gearing up for those elections in our country. But with this situation going on, not much, but it would be a distraction for them, where they should be focusing on the task of preparing the electors in Liberia for the upcoming elections. The president has a role, but when we were there, we fully participated in the elections by monitoring and preparing our colleagues to be involved, having a watchful eyes. And I pray that this issue goes away and the union remains intact, and the union remains strong and vibrant and powerful as it should be, because the nation, Liberians, need a viable mouthpiece that will speak for the rights of the people. Not everybody can speak for themselves, for him or herself, but with the media being vibrant and independent and strong, we can have the voices of the people heard through the media. And that's the role we expect the police to play. And I know they'll play that role. I have no doubt, Alex, that this issue will be resolved in the sooner possible time. The committee is a vibrant committee too. And we know things will be okay. And I want to thank Justice in Chimba Kabah for sending them back to resolve the issue among themselves. That is the best way to deal with that.
Yes, it is the best way. Until then, we'll see you next Saturday, the same time. We are here 3 p.m. Central Time, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, and 9 p.m. GMT. And if you live in California, I believe is 1 o'clock p.m. Okay, because we got 2 hours apart from the Central Time. Until then, all right, we'll be back here again next Saturday. And may you have a pleasant day.
At least don't forget to thank our guests for coming. I mean, at least they did for coming. So